Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's December 10th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And really, we started out with a trend down, found some support down here, and then we trended up. There's a two-tiered channel working here. We never really got a break of it in a new low, if I've got it drawn right here, which I think that I do. It's really hard to say. I mean, maybe this is actually the low here, and your midline is maybe in here, and maybe this is a little bit steeper. I'm not sure, but it tends to fit here, and this trend line really stays in play all the way down. So I believe that this is right. It's just a little hard to know for sure the way it lays out. In the end, just go with your shorter term stuff, and I'll explain that as we go along. I'll show you what I was seeing, but you really couldn't ignore this trend line right here. If you drew it off these first couple of swings, this swing turns out to be a little higher than these others. Actually, originally I had it a little steeper, but when we kept turning down right here, I just adjusted a little, but then we ended up bouncing out of here before we made a new low. So that's what makes me wonder if I've got it exactly right. It doesn't have to be exactly right. Maybe it was a little bit flatter. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. Maybe it was a little more like this. Actually, that probably would have been more like it right there. So then you have a close outside here, and there's a couple of legs down, and then we reversed out of there. But let's just see how that fits off the low side. Still makes it a little difficult to kind of figure the low side of this thing, but that could be right. That does tend to fit in there a little bit, but it's still hard to say. This is the way I played it though, so this is the way I'm going to show you, and you just have to kind of go to the shorter term stuff. And somebody asked me in a comment, rather than have to reply back on a comment, they asked me what I meant by measured move. The market moves in twos, and you'll get one leg, a correction, and then you get a second leg, and it's usually an equal move, or a measured move is what I call it, but it's just an equal move. Just to give you an example, let's say you measured this first leg up right here, and then actually you probably want to measure it starting from here, but we'll just measure it there, and then that's where the second leg started, and you look for an equal or a measured move. But let's measure it from the very low just to see where we get. It's probably going to be close there, and then the second leg started here, so that would be your target on a measured move or an equal move, and you can see we went a little further than that. But it's amazing how often these things will work out to the tick. I would call that your first move early on, and then you're looking for a measured move down, so you're looking for a target somewhere down in here. These are not exactly great examples, but hopefully you get the point what I'm talking about when I talk about measured moves. So today there's not really good examples of them. Maybe if we back out and went to a little smaller chart, you might see a few more examples of them. But anyway, I'm going to back out. We'll go through the trades. You had to be a little patient waiting on this morning, but then once we got going, it was a pretty good morning. So really, when I came in, we were working on this downtrend here, and I just don't see any setups in here. You would have wanted to wait. Let me make this. It still needs to be a little bigger. It was tempting to go long from here, but you really need to wait on a higher low. And we just never really get one down here. We're way up here before we get a higher low, and you don't want to be going long up here. In fact, when it tested that and gave you a second entry short, I like going short there. This one's real close. You could argue it to be green, but you can see that resistance across there. And we had a break and a new high, so what I would expect here, I'd be looking for a possible. I would measure that leg. That's a measured leg. And then I would look for a measured move, and that puts you down in this area, down in here for us. If we get a second leg down, It ends up going sideways more than anything, but that's what I would have been looking for at the time. And so I like that second entry short. Notice the new low, first entry, you try to go higher, and there's a little, that's a second entry short. Then you get a double test of that here, and relatively, it's not a perfect bar, but it's mostly bearish. And then you get another lower high right here on a second entry short. Notice that new swing low. It's lower than that. That's basically a swing low right there. So first entry, second entry, down it goes. And there's another measured leg there. You measure that one. And once we started lower, you look for a measured leg right there. So but that's a double test, and then you could actually say that's a double test of this level here as well. Then you come back. There's a lower high here, and looks like we're starting to make lower lows and lower highs. And that's a relatively bearish bar, and you could look at that as a second entry. Notice that new swing low, first entry, second entry. So that's a possibility. I didn't mark it because we weren't back to the high yet, and we were really close to the EMA. So I felt like it was not real clear right there, so you were probably better off to wait. That's not an ideal second entry anyway. That's more sideways stuff, although by the rules that's a second entry. So, but I think you're better off to wait on the lower high, and then look what happens. You get a lower high right here, and look at it go. Boom, the bottom just falls out of it. The good thing is you probably would have got a runner on either one of those entries. So, and look at it go. There's a failed second entry long right here, but we moved too far away from the EMA. Let me get that back over here. It is right off the key entry point, but I think you're going short into really a 3-bar matching low, a double bottom there, triple bottom. So, and then we're way too far down here now. And of course, then it bounces. I don't have my trend line on there, but there's a trend line working right up through there. You're going to close outside, move to a new high, and that's a second entry short right there, that big bearish bar. And just how bearish that is, I'm going to take that. Then we try to go higher. It actually breaks higher and turns and goes out the other side. You can go short there. And then there's a failed second entry long right there with a big bearish bar. I wouldn't have a problem adding on or getting in any of those 3 trades. And that's a pretty bearish move down, and that's your first correction back to the EMA. And of course now we move higher. This one is tempting being that far away from the EMA, but you still got that short-term trend line working up there, and you don't have any break of that yet. Nothing to say, hey, it's safe to go short. Turns out to be a nice trade, but you can't risk that. You got to go with what you got, and what you got says we got a trend working higher, and we could be headed back up here. And at that time I had this drawn a little steeper like I originally showed you. But notice how you make that low, then you make a higher low, and you get a second entry long right there. That confirms that trend line. And notice how you're making higher highs and higher lows here. So, and that's another higher low on a second entry long. That turns out to be a nice move. You could have caught a runner right there. And you get a break, couple of legs up, and we turn down right off that trend line. Only reason I don't like that one is because it's too bullish, not a very good signal bar. You could look at it like a failed break higher because that's a little bit of congestion. You do get a lower high here, but lots of support. You still got this trend line to contend with. We may touch it and bounce back up and then turn down. Doesn't turn out that way. We just push right through, but you can't go short right there for that reason. Comes back, and you make a failed second entry long that confirms that trend line. That's a big bearish bar. I'm sorry, a big bullish bar. But with that being a trap and everything pushing low and coming back and making a lower high in an overall downtrend, I'm okay with that one. Then it comes back and you get a first entry, try to go higher and get a second entry right off of that. This is not a perfect bar. This one is real close. You could almost say this is green, although that's bar is more bearish than it is bullish. It's not a really good signal bar, but it is a second entry off a key entry point, pulling back to the EMA too when you're looking for prices to come back down to here, and if this is two-tiered, maybe all the way to here. So that one's worth considering for that reason. And now we get a break. You get a second entry right here. That's a really small bar, but it's just mostly, there's maybe only 3 ticks in that bar. That's the kind you like to get on a second entry, but it's just not a, it's more of a, it closes, there's only 3 ticks, but it closes 2 ticks up, so it's more bullish. Wait on your lower high, which comes here. Again, it's not a perfect signal bar, but it looks very much like that one on a lower high, and we're looking to at least make a new low on this short-term channel, so I like that one. You do get another 2 tries to go higher, but that's just very congestive. And then we come up and we make a second entry short here. Again, not a very good setup. This is really your signal bar right here, but notice how it comes back to the EMA, test it, and it gives you that big bearish bar. I like going short right there. If you'd known for sure this was your trend line at the time, I'd probably said no on that one, but at this point you don't know if your trend line's not way down here because you just don't have a whole lot to work with there yet. So I like that trade. You get a failed second entry long right here, but it's a doji. Generally the signal bar won't matter on a failed second entry long, and there are 2 measured legs down there, but we're a long way away from the EMA, so, and you're right close to the very low of the day, so I'm going to skip that one. Then you come back. Again, I don't have my trend line on here, but again, you got a trend line working up through here. You don't want to be going short there. You do make a lower high and then come back and make a double test, and again, this is not a great signal bar, but it's a double. Notice that high right there. You test it once, you test it twice. This is really your signal bar, and it's mostly bearish, but you can't go short till it breaks below the next bar, which is here, and that's kind of equal. And again, it's not a perfect negative bar, bullish bearish bar, but it's not a great bar. It is a second entry short too. Notice that new swing low, it's lower than that one. So first entry, second entry, double test. It's a range, so we're just looking for prices. It's looking like a range, but we traded down into it, so it's more of a bearish bias here and a chance to get short at the top with enough room to get out. So that's why I like that one. I would have liked to have got a chance to go long here, but we're getting too close to the highs by the time we get this set up. This one's tempting, but then we get the bearish bar, and this is really your signal bar here, and so there's a higher low, but you don't want to be going long there. So, and then you don't have enough room to come back. Really, it is a second entry short. It's one you could consider, but I didn't mark it just because it's so close to these lows again, even though you might have moved your line down to here by now, and this one you probably would have still had right across there at that point. But I like this one. You got this low, you test it once here, you test it twice. Not a perfect bar, but it's close enough. You got plenty of room to get out before here. You make a higher low here and a failed second entry short here, but you don't want to go long right into that resistance. You want to see it push through first and pull back and test it, and it does that here. And notice you come back first entry, pull back second entry, but that also confirms that trend line up through there. Second entry long, breakout, pull back long. I like that entry. Nothing else, just to try to get a scalp. This thing takes off. There's another bounce here but you got to go long right into those highs. You're not back to the EMA. You're not back to the trend line. It's looking like we overshot here, so this could be a long trap. It does shoot on up, and where does it turn down? Right off that. That's that bigger trend line that's working lower on this 2-tiered channel. Big bearish bar, long way away from the EMA. This thing gaps across here. You may not could have gotten in it, but if you could, your chart might be a little different. So I wouldn't have been able to get in that trade. If I'd have dropped a limit order there, it wouldn't have got filled either. Maybe yours was a little different. But notice your move down first entry, second entry, and it turns down right off that key entry point again. Fairly bearish, but it's a failed second entry long. So I liked, and you still got a ways back down here, so I like that one. It ends up kind of going sideways. It was good for a scalp, real easy, but once we started going sideways, I just would have stayed out of that one. This one is tempting. There is a trend line down through there too, you can see. And this comes right off of it, a lower high, but we didn't quite get back to the EMA. It's another one you could argue to be green. I didn't mark it because we've had so many more better trades, but it's one you could consider. And again, we bounce here. Notice how we came back and tested this one more time. I don't really see any setups here because we're really still looking for prices to go lower. And you finally, you get a closeout here, a new high, but signal bar is too bullish and it pushes up and it actually breaks higher and turns and goes down. I like going short right there. You could even wait on that to close and put a stop there. That's a really big bar there, so it takes a big stop to get up above that swing high there. But you could drop it in there, a limit order, a tick or two back in there and try to get a little better entry. And you would have gotten at least a tick or two better entry. It drops on down and then it bounces again. You can see that trend line I got working up through there. It bounces. That one's real tempting, but you really need to prove that trend line out, and you don't get that till here. But even then, I think it's still a little hard to know what's going on here until you make a higher low and a failed second entry short. You at least got room to get out before coming back here, which is what you would expect to be happening. And it does. It actually turns down off that trend line again, but you don't get a setup, and then it just turns and breaks right out of there. And look how it takes off. A lot of the shorts realized, hey, we're on the wrong side here, and they got to start exiting. I don't like getting long in there, though. I don't see anything I really like. And again, if you put this on the other side, it looks like this could be a two-tiered one. Can see that two-tiered channel working up there. Comes back to the trend line again. I still don't like it. And we turn down. We're working down. We get a close outside, a new low. There's too much sideways stuff here for a short. I just don't really like a short. Then you get a close outside. It's a higher low, but we're not back to the midline. We're just not back to a point where I would think that you would be wanting to go long in there or short. I mean, it's obvious we're trending up now, so you just need a good setup. Then we get a repeat. Notice we had that little channel come down, break low, move down, break low, and this one bounces at this midline. If you drew the lines up the top and drew your midline in, you can see it running up through there. You can see prices playing both sides of it, all below it, above it, below it. Now above it again, and it bounces there. And of course we get to close outside, new low, and it makes that little jog down and kind of traps some shorts and then turns and goes up. Bullish bar, I like going long there. You get a higher low here, and we didn't quite get back to the high. And you could look at that like as a little bit of congestion with a drop below her. But this is really your signal bar, and this bar's got a higher low. So I'm not crazy about it. I think you want to wait for it to come back to a key entry point. And then notice we got that little move down, a break, a move down here, and it's almost a repeat pattern of that right there. And this is very similar as well. And it bounces again. I like going long there. Smaller bar this time. Then you get a first entry short, second entry short, and so there's your failed second entry short. Everything's above the EMA. Bullish bar. You're looking for prices to go back up to the high. There's also a trend line up through there. You can see that. So I like that one. Then we kind of go sideways and drop. And that gets you in the 2 o'clock hour. I mean, there were a lot of trades today. Not so many in the afternoon. But lately it always seems like the morning you have a lot more opportunities. And you can see all the red in there on the trend down. And once we got going higher, you had to have this two-tiered channel really to find these trades. It was a little difficult to, you knew we were going higher, and you could have just looked at this like a spike in channel. That's another way to look at this. So if you didn't see the two-tiered channel here, you could just look at this as a spike up and then find the channel right here working higher. So that's another way to see that. Let me back out a little more. As you can see, it spikes up and goes into this channel, just working higher. This is too steep, and this is more of a 45-degree angle, which is what you want. So, but you didn't get a lot of options off that key entry point. You got a few, but that's why I always enjoy trading more in the morning. It just seems like it's more clear and everything. There's more entries, and that's not to say that you won't get some really good afternoons. But this is more typical of what you'll see in the ES. You'll see a lot more trading up to about 11 o'clock noon hour, and then you tend to have more fake outs and not as many entries and things in the afternoon. That's just my experience. Don't really know why, but that's just the way I've seen it. So anyway, not a bad day, especially if you start early. But we'll be back again to do it tomorrow, but I'm going to wrap it up for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.